Charlie.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm full of optimism.
Einstein's theory of relativity.
We're still seeing it quite well through that haze.
T-minus 37 seconds.
The fight is growing
E
confident.
equals MC.
That all men are created equal.
About the future innovations.
And growing strength in the air.
Tear down this wall.
Something happening coming up on station.
This is Finding Your Frequency with your hosts, Jeff Spinard and Ryan Treasure. It's time to speak up, share your voice, and hear from the thought leaders.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a fantastic episode of Finding Your Frequency. I want to welcome everybody to the show this week. And, we are continuing to live in some extremely interesting times. I think I've kind of been avoiding the news, which is not the best thing. But at the same time, it's helping me keep my sanity. As you know, all of us have been kind of cooped up because of COVID-19 since about February. And things are just kind of ramping up and down and up and down. It's almost like a roller coaster ride. So a lot of times you just don't know what to expect. And so I just wanted to take a few minutes and just have a conversation around, some of these things that we're seeing and how it's affecting people's well-being, their relationships, their mental health. All of those types of topics. And so that's why we have a fantastic guest with us today, Dr. Abby Lev, and she's going to discuss, some of these things around psychotherapy and how some of those teletherapy services and some of those mental health needs have really kind of gone up in the last several months. And, what are some of the reasons behind that? And of course, just have a candid conversation about the state of the way that things are. So I want to welcome Dr. Abby Lev to the show. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I appreciate you being on with us. I'm sure that you've been extremely busy over the last several months. I know that you just launched your CBTOnline.com. You've got a lot of cool stuff in the works. And then, of course, being an active psychotherapist, I'm sure you're, still out there kind of, I guess, for lack of a better term, in the trenches, helping folks out when they have that need for your services. So, I want to stick true to the subject matter of the radio show, Finding Your Frequency, and we can get into some of those other components, I think, here a little bit later in the conversation. But first, I want to set the tone for the audience, and I want you to just let the audience know who you are. How did you find your frequency in life and in business? And, what was that aha moment for you where you said, you know what, I'm going to be a psychotherapist? Because I don't think, when you're a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old young person, do you go, I'm going to be a therapist? I'm going to be a psychotherapist. I think that there's probably a great story behind, why people get into, types of industry where, they're of service to other folks, whether it be being a doctor or a psychotherapist or what have you. But, a lot of times we find that there's an interesting story of what is the driver behind people who decide to go and do that. So Dr. Abby Lev, please tell us how you found your frequency.
Yeah, I'm in a helping profession. So often when people ask me why I became a therapist, they're expecting a very selfless response. But in reality, I got into this field in the beginning for very selfish reasons. I was feeling depressed. I was feeling a sense of kind of, what is the meaning of life? And what does all this matter? And what gives people purpose or a sense of fulfillment and meaning, and not knowing the answers to these things, I just started taking different classes like philosophy and sociology and psychology, and just really wanting to understand humans and human behavior and what drove people, what made people happy, because I wanted to be happy. And so I kind of ended up enjoying a lot of my psychology classes and learning about what drives human beings and human behavior, and kind of just having fun in the classes. And so I kind of moved forward with that. I think that my aha moment was when I was reading this book by Viktor Frankl. It's called The Doctor and the Soul. And Viktor Frankl actually wrote most of his books while he was in Auschwitz in a concentration camp in World War II. And he had a couple of chapters in this book, The Doctor and the Soul. There was a chapter on the meaning of life, the meaning of death, the meaning of love, the meaning of work, and the meaning of suffering. And the chapter on the meaning of suffering was one of my, I think, my all-time favorite things I've ever read. And there was an intervention there that he did that I just found to be so beautiful. And looking back, that was my aha moment. I read this intervention that he did, and I was like, I need to be a therapist. This is phenomenal. It was also a moment of realizing that, in reading the chapter on the meaning of suffering, that life is meaningful not just because of the happy moments, but that actually moments of trauma and difficulty, right, and distress, such as what we're going through right now in the world, right? Yeah, that moments of crises could bring about a lot of sense of meaning and purpose and tell you what you're about and what you want your life to be about, and make space for this idea of post-traumatic growth. Right? Like we could have a trauma, we could either move towards post-traumatic stress
or post-traumatic growth.
Right.
No, I love the way that you put that. And, we've had these conversations before on the show about post-traumatic growth. And, there's always this mantra of you have to step outside of your comfort zone in order to grow, right, and to become more than what you are. And I think every time that you have a scenario, especially in life, that's take your job and that kind of stuff kind of out of it, but you're living your life with family, friends, dealing with emotional things, children, all those types of things. And I think a lot of times, you're literally faced with that choice, right? When you have something that happens to you, you have the choice of, is it post-traumatic stress, is it post-traumatic growth? And when you get to that, I guess, fork in the road with your emotions, with your internal being, you've got to make that decision. And I think all too often people take the path of least resistance which is post-traumatic stress. And, because that's easier than going on the post-traumatic growth cycle. But at the same time, I think the more times that you're presented with that fork in the road, again, you're putting yourself through that, outside the comfort zone. And so the more you do that, I think the more you're able to move towards post-traumatic growth. And then, just talking about, suffering, right? I feel like the generation that came out of World War II was probably like one of the best generations of mentally sound, strong, human beings, right? And when you think about that, right? When I think about it, I'm always like, they went through like some crazy stuff. If you were stateside World War II, you're rationing gas. People at factories and all that are all just hyper focused on this war effort. But I think a lot of that environment that those folks were in at that time has helped kind of, create who they were, which would be like my grandparents. And it's just amazing to see kind of the growth that can happen in some of those spaces. And, as much as I know that we're dealing with, increase in mental health needs, increase in domestic violence and some of those things with all this crazy time, I think there's also going to be something beautiful that will come out of this for humanity, as we all have been forced to spend more time with our family and our, loved ones. And, I have a daughter, and, we've all become closer because of this, right? Because it's like, hey, no, you can't go, do a sleepover at your friend's house, that kind of thing. And so having those conversations and being around those, I think for me specifically has been post-traumatic growth. But I see a lot of people who are down and, they posting on Facebook how this is affecting them, whether they've lost their job or whatever. So let's speak to that portion of this. If you're dealing with the post-traumatic stress, how do you deal with that in a safe and healthy manner? And how do you turn it into post-traumatic growth?
Yeah, I think I don't think it's either or, right? Like the person that's both growing from it is still feeling stress from it, and the person that's feeling stress from it may still grow from it. So it's not either or. And even if we're doing a lot of growth, it doesn't mean that we're not feeling really stressed. It's a very stressful time. So I do want to acknowledge that there is a lot of pain and suffering and ungroundedness right now, unpredictability. Yeah. And even though the world is always unpredictable, like in reality, we can always just die. That there's a way that we're kind of defended against it when we don't have a global pandemic that reminds us of our own mortality, like every moment.
That's why I stopped watching the news.
Well, and that's a really great example, because part of making it through a trauma is being able to have this really good balance between avoiding versus not avoiding. If you look at the DSM criteria for post-traumatic stress disorder, the hallmark of this disorder is actually avoidance, right? So, for example, if I have a trauma at McDonald's, I go to McDonald's, I get held up at gunpoint in McDonald's, then what happens is, after that, I feel upset and triggered by McDonald's. I may then avoid going to that McDonald's or going to any McDonald's. I then may start avoiding seeing French fries. I may avoid Wendy's. I may avoid Burger King. I may avoid burgers. I may avoid Coca-Cola if that's what I drink. And so you have to really be thinking about that avoidance is part of having this disorder manifest and get bigger and bigger. So after a trauma, it makes sense to be protective of ourselves, but then we have to go back. We have to see the McDonald's. We have to face it. PTSD, the way that it gets developed is in our attempts to avoid the thoughts, feelings, sensations, and memories of the trauma. And so part of that work is helping people not completely dissociate and start avoiding and being afraid of everything and becoming hypervigilant, but starting to face their fears, right? Starting to face it and become stronger when facing it and noticing that it won't kill you.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, and I guess your explanation of that really helped me to understand how one can be in a status of post-traumatic stress and turn that into growth, right? You're like, you have your stressors, and then, little by little, you can start, adding or incorporating some of those things that you are avoiding to try to build up and towards growth. So I love that example, and I think you're right with keeping some kind of a balance. And for me specifically, and I don't think I have PTSD or anything because of this whole COVID thing, but I do. I have to keep a balance with it because I work in the news media, so every single day of my life I walk into my studio here in Phoenix, and I have press releases like you wouldn't believe through my inbox through PR Newswire or other outlets that we work with, that are every doctor in the world who has their own spin on COVID-19 and all of that, and then other companies that are talking about economic data and this and all that. And if you get too consumed with that information, it's really easy to just go, like almost to a state of depression because it's constant, negative things. Even when you watch like regular news, I turned on the news this morning for just a second. I'm like, I just want to know what the weather's like, right? Because it's, we're in the middle of summer here in Phoenix, and I'm like, is it going to be 105 or 115 today? And
it's not even possible anymore, right? No, it's not even possible just to get the weather anymore.
No, you can't even go on the Weather Channel app without seeing statistics for COVID-19. And I'm like, I get it that it's bad. I don't need you guys to tell me, every single day there's 2,000 cases today, then there was 1,800 cases yesterday, and they just keep, negative after negative after negative. I'm like, tell me about antibody tests and people who have been cured. Like if the state of Arizona had 40,000 cases, how many of those people didn't die? How many of those people, survived that? And let's, change the narrative a little bit. I think it's just, it's kind of crazy. It's interesting. And yeah, I've had to find a fine line of keeping myself engaged in certain areas and disengaged in others. And I think staying engaged is like, it's educational. I'm staying in the know, in the now. But I think other people who may deal with things a little bit differently, I think it's quite easy for someone to, make a left-hand turn instead of a right-hand turn,
Yeah, you're speaking of flooding, right? We're being flooded and inundated with this information. And it is a balancing act because you do want to know what's going on. You don't want to be walking around without a mask and then catching this very, very dangerous virus. But you also don't want to be so out of control, right? That information is coming at you in all moments when you're not prepared for it, right? So it's like you're making the point for why it's important for us to be more cognizant and mindful, for example, of our technology, to not be opening our phone maybe an hour before we go to sleep, right? Or that when we're watching the news, maybe thinking about when we're watching the news and for how long we're watching the news and being more mindful about how we're taking in this information. It's a balancing act.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Are you having trouble finding hand sanitizer? Well, Spa Treat has you covered. There's no need to go searching high and low. Just visit spatreatofficial.com and place your order on their easy-to-use website. On schedule delivery. One of the great things about this product, Spa Treat Fulfillment Team is working around the clock to provide people hand sanitizer during this time of need and get your order to you as quickly as possible, even faster than Amazon. Spa Treat also has the lowest price of any of its competitors. Spa Treat has 62% alcohol content and the FDA recommends between 60 to 80 for maximum protection. This one has 62 because it doesn't dry your hands out. I use this stuff every single day. It is fantastic. It's got certified organic extracts with the ingredients in that hand sanitizer that are the highest quality, and they're designed to leave your hands smelling and feeling fresh while protecting you at the same time. The best part, there's no tricky residue left over. None of that sticky stuff. 4 scents available: unscented, tea tree, lavender, and lemon. And best of all, this product right here is made in the good old United States of America. A lot of companies are having trouble dealing with the current demands, so Spa Treat has dedicated themselves to providing a much needed product in the time of crisis. Spa Treat has better prices, faster shipping, and a larger supply than any of their competition. There isn't even a close second. Visit spatreatofficial.com and enter promo code SPA SPA at checkout to receive 5% off your entire order. That's right. Not only are they offering the lowest price available, but they're also offering our listeners a discount. This promo code is exclusive to Voice America, and only our listeners get this discount. Spa Treat and Voice America came together on this sponsorship in order to provide Americans something they could really need right now: peace of mind. Visit spatreatofficial.com and order yours today. That's spatreatofficial.com, and make sure you use the promo code SPA at checkout to receive 5% off your entire order. spatreatofficial.com. Get your awesome hand sanitizer. Me being in the media, there's a huge difference between the news you see in the morning and the news you see in like prime time, 10 p.m., right? That 9, 10 p.m. stuff tends to have, a little bit more, negativity to it, or I don't want to say necessarily negativity, but it's like the day's events. You're hearing about, okay, you have the, it's the end of the day, we've had this many more cases, or whatever the case may be. There could be car accidents, there could be robberies, or crimes that have been committed throughout the day. And for me specifically, that's like the last thing I want to think about when I'm trying to go to bed. So last night it was really funny. We got home, it was Father's Day. We're recording this on the 22nd, so yesterday was the 21st on Father's Day, and we got home and it was like 8:00, and my daughter, she goes to bed, she's 6, so she goes to bed at 8:00, and I'm like, all right, well, what am I gonna do? And I'm like, I don't really want to read a book. I was like, I don't really want to watch the news. And so I just found a movie to watch, and I was like, so I just watched something completely old school, random, and nothing related to anything. I watched the original Karate Kid, which was always a feel good story of, accomplishment and such. And I think you have to do that sometimes to set the tone for, your mental status, to wind down and be able to not be, overwhelmed with thoughts or those types of things. And I think everybody deals with it differently. I'm a pretty strong-minded guy, but I have instances where I just can't shut my brain off sometimes at night, and I'm thinking about what's going on tomorrow, which is, some anxiety that's deep down within that manifests itself from time to time. But Yeah, and I don't know I don't know how other people deal with that. I mean, my wife has a hard time dealing with anxiety as it relates to current events and certain things, and she's very much avoiding some of those things. But at the same time, she still wants to know. So it's like I'll tell her the information so she doesn't have to consume it herself.
Right. Yeah. I mean, right now in cognitive behavioral therapy, it's very popular to use certain techniques like mindfulness, mindful meditation, or even self-compassion meditations, where we're learning to kind of watch the thoughts and let our thoughts go and not get hooked by our thoughts and the storyline behind the thoughts, but coming back to the sensations in our body, coming back to the breath, coming back to the present moment, and really making a lot of space for difficult feelings, for difficult sensations. And one good metaphor for thinking about self-compassion, and we're cultivating a way of relating to our internal experiences. So it's kind of like if you have a crying baby and that baby is very loud, if you're trying to push that crying baby away, or like, I don't want to hear it, it's so loud, and you want to move it away from you, the baby will cry louder and louder. And that's the same thing with our experiences and our emotions and our sensations and our feelings. And so mindfulness and self-compassion is about kind of learning how to relate to ourselves as a crying baby and bringing it closer and holding it gently and being really loving and kind with it and going, of course, this is scary. And you're feeling really helpless right now. And you're feeling afraid and it makes sense to feel angry right now. It makes sense to feel powerless. It makes sense to need a level of predictability. So there's this way that we're bringing our pain closer, we're softening up to it, and we're treating it with loving kindness and gentleness and speaking to it, like a baby with a lot of love, and we're validating that it makes sense that we feel this way, and we're labeling feelings and we're labeling needs. And so a lot of the more recent CBT techniques are about helping us learn there's a lot of metaphors and exercises that help us relate to our internal experiences in a different way.
So basically, to paraphrase, instead of stepping away from those moments, you need to step into them and, allow them to kind of be at the surface so you can categorize them, or whatever terminology you want to use, prioritize them even.
Right.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think there's probably some people that it's easier for some people to do that than other people, right? Not everybody is able to just be like, I'm stepping right into my feelings.
I want to say that's true. It's easier for some than others, but I will say that it's hard for everyone. Like, there wouldn't be so many self-help books. There wouldn't be so many apps for mindfulness if this came easy to us. So in reality, our brains are evolutionarily designed to constantly be finding fear, right? To be protecting ourselves, to go, I see a lion. This lion has teeth. This lion just ate my caveman friend. And now I don't want to. Now this bear looks like this lion. This wolf looks like a lion, right? We start connecting these things, right, in order to protect us. And that was really beneficial for us as cavemen. But now, now that we actually have societies and we're no longer running from lions, this is no longer helpful to us. We just see lions everywhere. And we really have to train our minds not to do that. And mindfulness is not about staying with the storyline, right? It's not about trying to figure something out or fix it. It's not about going, is there a line? Is there not a line? Am I anxious? Did I have too much coffee? Did I not have enough coffee? Is it because of my job? Is it because of COVID? Right? It's not about figuring something out. It's about staying with an experience, dropping the story and coming back to your experience in your body.
Yeah, so like exploring the present tense, what's happening now, and not thinking about the what if, what could haves, what should be's.
Right. And I think a big thing that I think is misunderstood is when people think about mindfulness, they think about it kind of like a sitting Buddha, somebody who's just kind of mindful, whereas I see mindfulness as a means to an end. So I think about it as a walking Buddha. It's like I'm not practicing mindfulness for the purpose of just feeling good. The goal of mindfulness is not to feel good. The goal of mindfulness is to be able to tolerate and notice and accept and stay with difficult internal experiences, because the better we are at doing that, the more freedom we have over our choices, over our behaviors. So if I'm triggered at a 9 out of 10, I'm going straight to autopilot behaviors. I'm just like, if I'm angry, I'm yelling. If I'm, scared, I'm running. We're in fight or flight. Mindfulness, the more that we're able to kind of stay with these internal experiences, provides us the freedom to then be able to act in accordance with our values, what we want to be about, what we want to stand for. It's a means to an end. It's not a feel-good solution. It's not about relaxing. It's about noticing that there's behaviors that we do that end up making our situations worse and end up creating the same patterns in our relationships and the same self-fulfilling prophecies. And the more willingness we have to have the difficult experiences, the more ability we have to choose new behaviors.
You guys have to check out this new service that I'm playing around with called Issue. It is totally amazing. You live to create, but you don't live to worry over the last nitpicky details involved in putting final touches on contact. You got to do what you do best and let Issue handle the rest. If you're a creative, you know the drill. You're finally done editing. It's perfect. Now you just need format and reformat for every single platform. With Issue, make it once, and it's ready to post everywhere. Seriously, Issue is the all-in-one platform to create and distribute beautiful digital publications, from brochures to magazines and sales collateral. It's perfect for creators, marketers, designers, educators, publishers, salespeople, or just anyone that wants to make eye-catching content that can be distributed on multiple platforms. Issue makes it really simple. Just upload the PDFs and files, and Issue transforms them using your vision and customizable templates to create the content you want. With Issue, you just create it one time and distribute it everywhere. Everything is optimized to post on your website, social platforms like Instagram and Facebook. They can even help you make animated Instagram stories. And the best part about it, it is free. F-R-E-E, free. That's right, it's free to get started with Issue. So go to issue.info/frequency to sign up for your free account. That's ISSUU.info/frequency to sign up and let them know that you heard about it from this show, Finding Your Frequency. Remember, that's .info, not .com, .info. So go to ISSUU.info/frequency and get your free account today. For me, we talk a lot about mindfulness when it comes to martial arts, right? There's a mind and body connection. I was talking to my mom about this yesterday. We were over at her house celebrating the Father's Day, and I said, one of the things I love about martial arts is, it's not just let me get strong arms and legs and know how to punch and kick. There's this whole cognitive mindfulness of when you are practicing martial arts. It's not just like, hey, I'm kicking. It's why am I kicking? How am I kicking? Right. And you're being very mindful. My mind and my body work together has come one of the mantras of karate, and so you can kind of paraphrase that into what you were saying, right? Is that mindfulness? It took me a long time to understand that, especially with with a young daughter, right? I'm former military. My life is very like, I get up when the alarm clock goes off. I'm in the shower by a certain time. I have everything very regimented. That's who I am. My daughter's the complete opposite. She's total like creative Virgo, and I have to be very careful how I approach talking with her, because I will go on autopilot, right? And I get mad and I start to elevate my voice, right? And I've had to really back up in that respect and be mindful and saying, wait a minute, I don't want to, my father was in the military too, right? So it's like, I don't want to continue this, right? I need to be mindful of those times where I go on autopilot and take a step back for just a second to assess, like you said, what are my values? What do I really want out of this? And then re-engage with the communication of what we need to do, whether it is inappropriate behavior that we're trying to correct. I don't want to try to correct inappropriate behavior with other inappropriate behavior. Right.
Absolutely. And I want to say, like you were speaking about the interesting times that were around World War II. And I actually think that right now is a very similar time to that time. And so it's interesting to think about it that way. Yeah.
You're right. It's very, very similar. I mean, in World War II, I'm gonna go economic on this a little bit here, but the supply chain to a United States of America was very difficult in those times. Right. Same thing has happened to us now. Our supply chain has depended on, and I'm not getting political, this is just a fact, has depended on China for a long time. Right. And so you go to the store, there's all kinds of things that you purchase that are made in China, even your PlayStation that's from a Japanese company. Right. Whatever it is, they're all, manufactured there. And, when you sever those supply lines and you're starting to have to, say, oh, wait a minute, beef. I went to the store the other day and I was like, I'm going to buy some ground beef, and it was like $9 a pound. And I was like, what is going on? Right. And so all of these things that we've kind of taken for granted throughout the last several years as Americans, some of that stuff is not available to us, right? And we're having to learn to live in a different era, learn to live with, the lack of one or two things that might have been normal to have. And so when you correlate now versus World War II, I mean, other than the fact that we're not currently at war, which is, very crazy, the economic implications and the supply chain implications are very, very similar.
Right. I think also the existential implications and the humanism implications are similar as well. The ways that we're very divided right now and polarized, and a lot of the writings that people were writing about, because Viktor Frankl wrote during that time, and he talked about existentialism and meaning, and Buber wrote during that time, and he discussed the idea of relationships and people not treating people as a means to an end, but as an end in and of themselves. He talked about the I-thou relationship versus the I-it relationship, when we treat others as an it as opposed to a separate, independent, subjective human. And we can even have an it relationship where we see even ourselves as a means to an end, which I think with technology and online dating and right-clicking on human beings, we're really at a very similar place, where a lot of people wrote about these mechanisms. Like Eric Fromm has a book called Escape from Freedom, where he talks about how a society is more vulnerable to a fascist regime when they have too much freedom, when there's just so many choices, so much to choose from, that they're actually more vulnerable to a dictatorship because they're needing those limitations. And so it's interesting that we are at a very interesting time where we are feeling like means to an end, or like we're in it relationships, and we're seeking kind of deeper connections with one another, and not to be kind of dehumanized, right, or made into like a commodity that we just click next, right?
and honestly, I think that what you just described is, a lot of, I think the ideas behind, a lot of the protests and things that are happening around the country too. Like people, I'm not gonna say anybody's movement, right? Everybody has a right to their own everything, but I think just from looking at it from 50,000 foot, no matter what you believe, people are sick and tired of, maybe whether it be the government or large businesses, big pharma, whatever you want to call, like looking at all of us as numbers or dollars and cents, or like you said, that it right. Because we're like, wait a minute, I'm a human, and then you start thinking about the implications of data capture through all of the different technologies, and these companies have a portfolio on you of the things that you buy, the places that you go, all of those types of things, and then at that point you no longer become a human in their eyes. It's just like a marketing number to be able to hit whatever your de factoid is. And whether it's in large business or economics, or even in American society and culture with people having relationships with each other, I think there's some of those issues as well that are being addressed as we're also going through a pandemic, which is extremely challenging, because you want to say let's get outside of our comfort zone to make some choices on whether we're going to, grow or, maybe sink in a little bit before we're able to grow. But, I think we have an opportunity right now as a human race to really change the narrative, right? I've been feeling this for a long time too, for, the last couple of years. I just feel like humanity is growing as a whole, and it's kind of like what's the analogy? You can't grow without some disruption first, right? It's you have to have some type of a disruption to cause an event of growth. And I feel like this is kind of that thing for us as human beings, because you see all of these things taking place, not just here in the United States, but in other countries where people are fed up with, being an it, as you like to put it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think when you were talking about being at this fork in the road as well, I agree. It feels like we're at a fork in a road, and it's an opportunity. And I don't know whether it's going to go in a more positive direction or in a more negative direction, or both, or, one before the other. I don't have the answers, but certainly I agree with you. The word is opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I think we're all wanting and needing some change. And when you said that we have a choice, I think that Viktor Frankl, the guy that wrote this book, the Doctor and the Soul, which is based on existential psychology, he talks about it in the sense of attitudinal values. Like we're free to choose our values, but when we're in a circumstance where we no longer have the freedom to do that, like if we're in a concentration camp or a prison and I don't have the freedom to actualize certain values, like being creative or like talking to you right now, or going to work or doing the things that matter, we always have a freedom to choose our attitude. Our attitudinal values could never be taken away from us, regardless of the circumstance that we're in, because we always have the freedom in any circumstance that we're in, even if we're in prison and all our rights are taken away, to choose the attitude that we have. Do we want to be selfish? Do we want to be angry? Do we want to be kind? Do we want to be loving?
Don't let your emotions dictate your actions.
Right. We can always choose how we're going to respond to a situation that's completely out of our control.
Yep. Yeah, that's funny that you bring that up. This is like an ever-going conversation between me and my wife and our 6-year-old right now. She's
attitudinal values.
Yeah, she's growing from that space of being like a toddler, like a little girl, into being a child, and moving into her adolescence. As she goes from 7 to 12 or 13 or whatever that range is, and she's starting to understand, like, I have these emotions, and I have to clean my room, and it's like, honey, let me tell you, there's these things just that you have to do, and keeping up after yourself, and taking care of yourself and learning those life skills are extremely important. I'm not going to wait until you're 13 years old to teach you that. We got to work on this now. And yeah, there's so much so much attitude that goes into that, and trying to harness that into positivity is sometimes a challenge as a dad too.
Yeah. She's becoming more of an autonomous person, right? More herself and who she is. And again, everything is a balance of allowing her to be who she is, and also recognizing the limitations that we all have, like having to clean our room.
Yeah, I always use that one just as an example, because, it's like, hey, will you go clean your room? And her immediate is, I don't want to do that. And it's like, hey,
I know. I'm an old lady, and I still feel that way.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, the difference is I don't allow my emotions to dictate my actions, right? So I may say in my head, I don't want to do that, but you're not going to see me have a physical reaction to my, emotion, which is one of the things I'm trying to teach her. Like, it's okay to have emotions, but like, you can't lash out at everything every time you have an emotion. Like, we'd all be nuts if we did that. There has to be some kind of containment or control. I'm not saying don't be emotional or don't have emotions, but at the same time, you've got to be able to internalize that and work on that stuff with yourself, and be able to move on.
Well, I think the very interesting piece about this is that the more we allow for different emotions and thoughts and internal experiences, the more control we have, because we're not trying to control our feelings, we're not trying to control our thoughts, we're not trying to control our sensations, we're only controlling our behaviors. Behaviors are very easy to control. Emotions and thoughts are pretty much out of our control.
Yeah, I mean, I get super emotional about lots of different things. Father's Day is a perfect example. Like, my father's not here anymore. My father's been gone for over 20 years, and still to this day on Father's Day, even though I am a father, I still can't help to have some, emotions in that space, and it is what it is. But you're not going to also find me crying in the corner on Father's Day and not, being part of my family and being available and that type of thing, right? Sure, I have those emotions, but I'm not allowing those emotions to change my, my behavior patterns or the way that I'm, physically going about the day. Not that I don't have those. I mean, I think everybody as human beings, like, at the core of who humanity is, I mean, we're like emotions are part of, our DNA. That's, part of, I think, what drives people in certain circumstances. If you have an emotion towards one thing, does that make you grow? Does that make you go and seek out some, higher learning components to be able to deal with those emotions? Or, a lot of emotions are why entrepreneurs start gigantic businesses and do stuff in their garage. They had a feeling about something, and that feeling then gave birth to an idea, which then, boom, now there's Google.
Right. Well, that's why I started CBTOnline, right? I started CBTOnline because I wanted people to have access to cognitive behavioral therapy, and I wanted people to have access to therapists. And I actually think that right now, the tech field is kind of encroaching on our field, and there are certain companies like BetterHelp and Talkspace that I find to be quite exploitive. They're not really hiring psychologists that are effective. They're not hiring psychologists with particular credentials. They're not training their psychologists. Sometimes they've hired people that are not even licensed. They're paying psychologists very, very low fees, and so the standard for the therapeutic services that people are getting is getting diluted. And so with CBTOnline.com, I want to ensure that we're doing effective cognitive behavioral therapy, and you're going to be working with therapists who are experts in cognitive behavioral therapy, and you'll be matched with somebody that is a good fit for you. And it's, again, you're not a number. There isn't an algorithm that will find you the best fit. You'll actually talk to a human being who understands behavioral therapy, who understands what's going on with you, and who will find you a fit that works for you, for your unique situation and your particular needs. And also, there's lots of free resources and questionnaires so that if you can't afford therapy, you could still have all of the resources that you need to do your own therapy on yourself, to self-help, and learn skills and still do those, learn those skills and do those techniques on your own.
Oh, that's awesome that you have tools for that, because there are a lot of people that, maybe don't have health insurance that covers the type of mental health care that they need. And so that's great that there's some free tools for people to kind of review, and I wouldn't say self-diagnose, but
right.
Hey everybody, I wanted to tell you about this great shaving product that I've been using lately. Not only is it awesome, it will save you money. Enough to buy 26 cups of coffee in New York City or 3 deep dish pizza dinners in Chicago. Harry's is an awesome product. It delivers high-quality razor blades as low as $2 each, a fraction of the price of leading brands, and saving you hundreds of dollars at the same time. I really like the way that Harry's works. It has a very close shave, it's got a great design for the handle, and also the scent of the shave gel is fantastic, and it leaves your skin nice and smooth. You can get a trial set delivered to your doorstep by going to harrys.com/frequency. Quality, durable blades at a fair price, just $2 a blade. They've cut out middlemen manufacturing blades in their German blade factory that's been honing precision blades for a century. I'm telling you, I use this product and it is absolutely amazing. Harry's has all your grooming needs covered in just one stop. You can get blades, hair care, shower products, all on harrys.com. And just like their blades, Harry is committed to providing premium products without breaking the bank. Again, visit harrys.com/frequency. I want to make sure that everybody gets the chance to go check it out. You can feel better too about the purchase because 1% of their proceeds are set aside for nonprofit organizations developed to helping provide access to better mental health care for men and veterans. How could you not get behind the veterans? So important nowadays. Listeners of the show can redeem their Harry's trial set at harrys.com/frequency. You'll get a weighted ergonomic handle for a firm grip, 5-blade razor with a lubricating strip and a trimmer blade. I use it every day. Rich lathering shave gel with aloe to keep your skin hydrated. And I'm telling you, when you get done shaving, your face will feel so smooth, it's amazing. You even get a travel blade cover to keep your razors dry and easy to grab on the go. So make sure you go to harrys.com/frequency to start shaving and saving today. You can be undiagnosed but still be making strides to be better manager of who you are internally, right?
Right. You don't need a diagnosis to understand yourself. Like, you don't have to have depression or anxiety. You could notice, for example, that you have perfectionism, right? Or that you are like tend to kind of feel guilty and not assert yourself, right? So you could still be able to diagnose what you need to learn. Do you need to learn assertiveness skills? Do you need to learn more self-compassion skills? Do you need to learn more about not procrastinating, for example, and prioritizing and moving forward on your goals? So on this website, we have all of that. You could take a questionnaire and see what issues you have. We have videos and worksheets for you to fill out, and it's authentic cognitive behavioral therapy, and it is my passion to make sure that people are getting the right therapy and effective therapists, and not be a number, right? Not just this crazy idea with Talkspace that you could just do texting therapy. A therapy is a very interpersonal, intimate experience. It isn't an algorithm, know. It should never be an algorithm.
No, that's a really good point, and something I wholeheartedly believe as well. I mean, you can't, there's no way that a computer screen and, some preordained funnels or whatever, right, as you follow through, like, there's no way that that's going to help you. You have to, again, emotions are of strictly human-based component, right? I'm sure that animals also have emotion as well, but I'm just saying, like, as being a human being, I mean, we're an emotional being. There's no way I'm ever going to get over an emotional or traumatic item without talking to another human being about my traumatic item or my emotions, right? Right.
And it's a dual process. I impact you and you impact me, and I get impacted by my clients. They change my life like I change theirs. It's a very intimate process, therapy, and so it's important to make sure that we're giving effective treatment. Sometimes, there's certain therapies are worse than not having therapy at all. Like you spoke earlier about domestic violence. Couples therapy is a great example where if you have a therapist that is not effective, that doesn't stop the maladaptive behaviors or the harmful behaviors that are happening in the moment, allows that to go on for too long without stopping it and teaching skills and practicing skills in those moments, it actually makes things worse rather than better.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You've got to be able to, have that. And honestly, I think if a lot of people would, understand that, that type of behavior is not condoned in the first place. And, I don't know. I guess I have a different thought about, especially domestic violence. I'm like, domestic violence is caused by whatever the reason is, but I'm like, if you like beat your wife, like, should you even have a wife in the first place?
Well, maybe the dilemma.
Maybe you don't need relationship training. Just don't have a relationship.
I wish it was that easy, right?
I know.
I mean, it's the dilemma is that it never starts that way, right? Like, if it started that way, then, people wouldn't be staying with these people. But it's kind of like the boiling frog metaphor. If you put a frog in boiling water, it's going to try to hop out and be screaming and trying to escape. But if you put them in lukewarm water and you slowly, increase the temperature, the frog doesn't notice that it's boiling, and you could just literally boil it alive and it won't even notice. And that's a good metaphor, not just for domestic violence, but for many things in the world. Even if we think about this pandemic, the things that are happening with the government, right? We have to start, or even being assertive, right? We have to be able to start intervening, not when things are like a 10 out of 10, not when you're on fire, but when things are like a 4 out of 10 of bad, right?
I kind of feel like we're the frog right now.
We are the frog right now. Absolutely.
We're sitting in lukewarm water.
I think we're at like 80 degrees. I think it's beyond lukewarm. We're a little higher temperature than lukewarm at this point.
Yeah, we just have to jump out of the pot and turn the heat off, right?
Right.
Understand where we're going so we can make change now versus later, because later could be too late.
Right. Better to have more preventative measures than just like dealing with what comes up, right? But rather being able to predict what may come up and being more prepared for it.
It's the same thing that a good entrepreneur will always say, like, let's be proactive, not reactive.
That's exactly what I was trying to say. Thank you for articulating that so clearly.
I probably use that phrase at least twice a week with our team. I'm always like, listen, these types of scenarios, customer service, whatever it is, like, we've got to be proactive, not reactive. We've got to, be there with a solution before the solution is asked for, because we've dealt with it before. It's like, if you use COVID-19 as a perfect example, especially with businesses, right? It's like, all right, boom, we got hit with COVID-19. I'm a business owner. I had no clue this came out of the blue. I didn't even have this in my 5-year prospectus plan. I had no fallback plan. I had no, in the event of this type of emergency, what are some procedures or protocols to put in place as a business owner? And so then it's like, okay, happened to me. All right, got it. Shame on the world. I need to be better prepared. But if it happens a second time and you're not prepared for that, that is definitely shame on you, right? Because you know that it exists. And so it's important, if you're going to be a smart business person in the future, you've got to say, hey, well, this happened to me one time. What's my plan in case it happens again?
Right. And even if it's not shame on you, or it doesn't matter whose shame it is on, the consequences are on you regardless, right? So even the first time, it may not be your fault, but it's your responsibility to fix. Like, the consequences still land on you. So, yeah.
Yeah, like a bad relationship, right?
Right. It's like if I get hit by a car and I'm paralyzed, it may not be my fault. Maybe the other person was drunk, but it's my responsibility to then do physical therapy and take care of myself and heal and get better quicker, right? And do the right, therapies and work that I need to do to heal as quickly as possible, right?
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for being on, Dr. Abby Lev. We really appreciate all of your wonderful insights. I think we had a great conversation today, just about the status of mental health and emotions and relationships at this hard and trying time. And I want to urge everybody to go check out your website at CBTOnline.com. And then, of course, I'm sure you have some social medias and all that kind of stuff that people can follow. So what's the other ways people can get a hold of you outside the website?
I have another website, the Bay Area CBT Center. So it's bayareacbtcenter.com. And I also have a face group for bayareacbtcenter.com. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Finding Your Frequency. And I want to urge all the listeners that are out there that are listening to the show, whether it be on Apple Podcasts or Google or whatever your favorite podcatcher is, make sure to rate the show 5 stars, not 4, because me and the doc, we deserve 5 stars, not 4.
Touche.
Dr. Avilev, thank you so much for joining us on Finding Your Frequency. We really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you stay tuned to Finding Your Frequency as we release new episodes every Friday with fantastic guests around great topics that really matter. Really hope that you guys can send us some email feedback, info@voiceamerica.com. We'd love to hear from you about this show or any show, or of course, any topics or subjects that you want to cover on Finding Your Frequency. I'm your host, Ryan Treasure. Thank you again for tuning in to Finding Your Frequency right here on Voice America, the leader in live internet talk radio.